Yeah, welcome everybody. This is Tap Out Talk. I'm your host, Bryan, the Hype Ballard, and we're getting to the way too late, way too crazy full gear results and thoughts. Without further ado, we've waited long enough. Let's get in. All right, guys, welcome. And this we're going to cover here is the 0 hour to full gear. We'll make it quick and brief, but I do want to say thank you guys for being patient with me on this one. Actually, the night after full gear, we recorded a whole session here on Tap Out Talk. Whole entire session, only to find out the audio did not record. We took our notes. We ate our Lucky Charms. We threw on the Nikes. We were ready for performance. And the audio did not record, which caused me to really just rethink life as a podcaster. But that's okay, because you know what, I do this because I like it, not because I'm making millions off of it. And so I'm going to get back, and I told myself I was going to review these notes, and I was going to go over this, if not just for you guys, but for me. First matchup on the 0 hour is Eddie Kingston versus Jay Lethal. This was for the Ring of Honor World Championship matchup. Jay Lethal had Sanjay Dutt, Satnam Singh, the Jarretts, Karen and Jeff out there. And we even got a little bit of Stokely right there on the broadcast. And remember, the 0 hour is meant to get the crowd ready, get them started out, test out that ring. And I tell you what, it's something about Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston is loved by many, loved by the crowd. I'm not a big Eddie Kingston guy myself, but I have grown a little bit of a fondness for him the more I watch him. But I will say this about Eddie. He does know how to get a crowd involved. And he did that here in this matchup with the technical paralysis of Jay Lethal. So in this matchup, we get a lot of back and forth. And ultimately, Eddie, as you guys seen on the 0 hour, does pull this out with a victory. Eddie wins basically the overall battle. And he actually announces later in the night that he will go for a new tournament that is actually going to be involved called the Continental Tournament that will be on the next month of programming of AEW. So, at the end of this match, we also get Ortiz back into the picture, and they look like they're back on the same page with Eddie. Life is good unless you're Stokely Hathaway, but Eddie joins Renee and RJ City for a moment and calls Stokely a bald-headed bitch. So we get Eddie in about a 10-minute mark getting a win on this one. We move on to our second match of the 0 hour. I will say the 0 hour always performs. Here at Full Gear is no different. We got Claudio Castagnoli versus Buddy Matthews. And these guys have been having a bit of a feud back and forth if you haven't been following. It's the Blackpool Combat Club versus the House of Black. And we've seen a little bit of back and forth, and then on Friday, on Rampage, on Collision Friday night, we found out that Buddy Matthews would be taking on Claudio in the 0 hour. So in this one, Buddy at the beginning throws his zip-up hoodie in Claudio's face and stomps him down. Claudio fights back and teases us big swing, but it's too early in the match for that. We can't do the swing right away, can we? So ultimately, they get onto the apron. Claudio whips Buddy into the barricade. Then there's some European uppercuts, because it's Claudio. Claudio runs into a shoulder block from Buddy, and they just go back and forth, and they get a little crazy. But ultimately, Buddy fights off the overall swing attempt again mid-match. There's a super European uppercut. It gets a 1 and a 2 for Claudio. Buddy fights back with a neutralizer. The kicks are exchanged, and then it's finally swing time. After the swing, we get a 2 count on Buddy. It's interesting. I like the way they use the swing as a psychology. They teased it with the fans once. No. They teased it a second time. No. And then they built to it, finally giving the fans something to cheer for the swing. And that's what you got to do sometimes, is give people a little bit. And the story here was trying to get the swing on Buddy Matthews. This is going to end up with Claudio lifting Buddy up, and he hits a TKO, a running European uppercut. He gets a 1 and a 2. There's a Ricola bomb, and then a sharpshooter, and Claudio marches back to the center ring, and Buddy taps. So basically, Buddy starts to get to the rope. He's pulled back. Claudio gets the win around the 10-minute mark here. Claudio wants a handshake at the end of this matchup, but to no avail. Buddy Murphy actually blows him off and walks past him. Claudio then brushes it off of his shoulder, literally. Brushes it off the other shoulder and celebrates and plays to the crowd. Up next, we get the final 0-hour matchup. That is MJF and Samoa Joe teaming up. That's right, he's taking Samoa Joe's help. Our Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champion. And this is where the night begins. This is where the storytelling begins for the pay-per-view. They're going against the Guns here. And the goal and the story is that Samoa Joe helps MJF with his title defense since Adam Cole cannot go. That he will get a future title shot from MJF. So Samoa Joe's there to do a job as a hired hand. The Guns entrance is about the same. And then Excalibur basically explains that Juice Robinson is not with him because he's out of action due to the shot of the head that he took on a television swinging MJF. Ultimately, Joe holds the rope open for the group. So at this point, Samoa Joe's coming out. He holds the rope open for MJF, who's wearing his purple and gold because, you know, they're out in LA tonight, so they got to get a little bit of Laker love going there. But ultimately, the storytelling in this matchup starts and leads into the pay-per-view for this one. And ultimately what happens is we get a little bit of a competition between Joe and MJF, and they're blind tagging each other back and forth, left and right, all over the match. Ultimately then, we fast forward and we do get a double Samoa Buster from each of the competitors with MJF and Samoa Joe. And then all of a sudden, there's a 3 count that gets broken up, and they fight both Guns on the outside. Gunn takes MJF out and sets up for something on Joe, but Adam Cole's music hits. Cole comes out on crutches, so Adam Cole is limping out on crutches, and Joe takes advantage of the distraction and locks in a choke submission for the win around the 9-minute, 25-second mark. And then, while MJF and Cole are embracing on the outside, then MJF shakes hands with Joe in the ring, and Cole pumps MJF up with a positive speaking, but then the Guns attack from behind. This is after Samoa Joe left and did his job. So now, Cole can't stand and he can't get into the ring. I want you to remember that from the story booking standpoint. He can't even compete, let alone get into a ring. And then all of a sudden, MJF is attacked while Cole watches. MJF goes out on a stretcher, and we don't know the future of the AEW Championship main event here at Full Gear this night, because MJF and he's leaving in an ambulance, but just as he's leaving in that ambulance, he does make, in a very overly dramatic acting, Adam Cole promised that they won't take his championship. Adam Cole says yes, of course, he won't let them take the championship. And that leads us into Full Gear. So, Full Gear is getting us towards the beginning of the pay-per-view, and this is where it starts, and we don't know what the main event entails for us. And at that point, this is a couple of you guys, some of you guys didn't like the story booking of this event tonight. I'll tell you one thing I do like about it, and I think it could have been a little bit. I think overbooked might have been the thing and the theme here. And I'm not arguing that at all. I do like bookend storytelling, though. I like the idea that we start with a story and a theme throughout the night, and then we end with a story and theme. And I remember when, back in the day, WCW Nitro was very good at bookend storytelling. And I feel like, these pay-per-views should be mini movies. They should answer some questions. We should get some clues, cues, and indicators about how they move and how they go. So ultimately, we are kicking off into Full Gear, and we have the beginning of that story. We have that question of what will happen. And we had to build up Jay White as a possible winning this title tonight, or something that was going to happen. And we got to wonder what is going to be that story here at Full Gear. But we can't remember that right now, because we got to get into our first match while we figure out all that championship craziness. And our first match is going to be Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne taking on a trios match against Adam, the Rated R Superstar Copeland, formerly Edge, Darby Allin, and Sting. If you guys missed it, Edge is now in AEW. He's made his return within the last month, jumping ship, crossing the line, whatever you want to call it. And Christian has some children singing his choir and to get them out. And then we get at ringside, Ric Flair actually gets his own entrance in this one. And then after that, we get Sting and Adam coming out with baseball bats, and Darby. And they got a theme going. They're all in the black and white. Their faces are either half painted or full painted. And they got a good look going, right? Sting in full paint, Adam Copeland, Darby in half paint. I like the look. I like the design. You knew they were winning this matchup. Something that's fun. Sting has not taken a loss since he's been in AEW for multiple years. And I think they'll ride that out. It's the wins that he should have gotten in WWE. And we know that he was not treated the best there. But hey, they put him in the Hall of Fame, right? So, at this point, we get some back and forth trios action. And then what this one's going to end up with is, we get some dive overs. We get, overall, we do get Darby Allin, Adam Copeland, and Sting at about the 15-minute mark. So we get a lot of celebration here. They move ahead. And then Darby drops some F-bombs while telling the people in LA and in California to cheer for Sting's last match in California. And for me, that was important because we do forget that Sting is on his farewell tour, even though we're all aware of it. This is the last time we're going to see the icon in California, in his home state, wrestling. And it makes me wonder and realize, let's remember, we're here to enjoy the final ride of Sting. We don't know how it ends. We don't know where it's going. But what we do know is I think we're in for something special for these next couple months as we say farewell to the icon. And I think the AEW will send him out on a really good note, and I think they'll do it right by him. So Tony Khan's definitely handled Sting amazingly, and I think it's been a great partnership both ways, and it's helped bring Darby Allin up into the fold even more. So now, we're going to get a main event update next. And Tony Schiavone is on the stage with Bryce Remsburg, the referee, and Jay White comes out to accept his AEW World Championship via forfeit. Tony tells us that MJF is injured and will not be able to compete tonight. The match has been canceled, and our new AEW champion is... It's all about that boom! Adam Cole, baby, as music hits. And Adam Cole is out. Cole tells Jay White that he made a promise to his best friend MJF that he already talked to Tony Khan. If MJF can't defend the championship, Adam Cole will. So, at this point, we get Adam Cole defending MJF's AEW World Championship against White tonight. White says he took Cole out once before, and he'll take him out again. Now, I said I was all about bookend storytelling, and I do like the concept. But here's the thing. Let's think about logic. Adam Cole was not medically clear. That's why he did not defend his Ring of Honor championship in the pre-show, in the 0 hour. That's why Samoa Joe got tossed into this whole picture. So, for me, I don't understand how Tony Khan, in story quote unquote, can medically clear Adam Cole to wrestle on behalf of MJF in the main event. It doesn't make sense. And while I say, some people are going to say, oh, Jay White got buried tonight. Oh, Jay White. No, clowns. Jay White didn't get buried. Jay White is too good to get buried. He's just in his rookie year in AEW. And he's getting his start. Okay? So this is only ultimately going to see us make him visualize him as a main eventer and the guy that can actually go in the main event even under some weird circumstances. So ultimately, Adam Cole, though, being clear does not make any sense to me. If it was me playing fantasy booker, I would have had Samoa Joe take MJF's spot. This could have been payback for Joe helping, in the 0 hour match, and this would have been a way for him to get a title shot. It didn't necessarily say that Joe would have gotten a title shot at MJF. It was his title. He would have still got a title shot at MJF's title if he would have taken on this main event. So I would have loved to see Samoa Joe versus Jay White as the teased main event here, and I think that story makes more sense than having Adam Cole with the proverbial one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest moniker. So we'll kind of let the story play out throughout the evening, but this is what they were trying to set up, and they were trying to create booking in a little drama to the championship match, but it just didn't make overall sense. So here we have, next up, the International Championship match against who I feel is one of, or two of the most iconic to this international championship and guys to hold it, and that is Orange Cassidy, Jon Moxley, part 2. So we're going to get a match. Cassidy comes out with Hook, Moxley comes out with Wheeler Yuta from the Blackpool Combat Club, and Mox gets the upper hand early. Mox not getting a lot of, he's looking a little pasty these days. He looks a little rusty, but he'll get over that. Mox is back with a front suplex with some chops, and then he tells Orange Cassidy, he basically gets back with Orange Cassidy and he hits a slam for a 2 count. More of a boss man slam type move. Mox goes for a Texas Cloverleaf. Okay. He's got some technical skills, but he locks it in. And Orange Cassidy gets out, but also gets stomped and chopped for his measures. Fast forward in the match a little bit. Later on, we get Orange Cassidy blocking a Death Rider and hits a Slumdog Millionaire. And then Mox hits a bunch of punches and goes for the Bulldog Choke. Cassidy gets out in pile drivers and a beach break are teased, but Mox is firing up and he's firing up out of a kick, and then Cassidy locks in a Red Rum. Mox maneuvers to the corner and removes a turnbuckle. Mox hits his cutter on Cassidy, and then a Gotch pile driver and gets a 1 and a 2. Mox with some lazy kicks to Orange Cassidy. Cassidy puts on his hands in pockets, and Mox runs into the exposed turnbuckle. Cassidy drops Mox back, but he can't take advantage of it. And he hits a punch for once, twice, 3 times, 3 punches. Mox back up, Cassidy with a roll up for a 2, another punch, another. And there's 6 of them this time. Finally gets a 1, a 2, and a 3 for the win. And the pin at the 12-minute mark. Orange Cassidy is still your international champion. We get Trent and Claudio that come out post-match for a little activity, and Hook and Wheeler kind of get into it a little bit. But I think this is just going to build to their eventual match. Just so you guys are aware, Mox did bleed during the match. I think we need to start keeping track on how many matches in a row Mox has bled in. I can vouch he even bleeds at house shows. Just saying. So we now have Adam Cole. Some news that Adam Cole and Jay White is made official with a little graphic on TV, kind of keeping that story in mind. Meanwhile, Mark Briscoe is also announced to enter this Continental Classic tournament. It's got to make sense. He's a Ring of Honor guy, and I think that makes good use of Mark Briscoe. And he might be the underdog storyline of this tournament. We'll have to see. But, speaking of next, we got to get into our Women's World Championship matchup. Hikaru Shida, the champion, 3-time champion, defending against Timeless Toni Storm, looking to make history and become another 3-time champion herself. What do you guys think of the Timeless Toni Storm gimmick? I like the graphics. I like the black and white. I like what they're doing with it. I can't help but wonder if Dustin Runnels, aka Goldust, has helped her develop this character. This character's got a very Goldust vibe to it, without the weird creepiness, but it's got a very cinematic Goldust vibes to it, and I would like to think that Dustin might be helping out with the producing of it a little bit. It's kind of a nice. Sometimes the best art is the art that imitates other art. I always liked Toni Storm with the rocker gimmick. I always said she's female Chris Jericho. But I do appreciate the fact that she is attempting to reinvent herself to not grow stale. We got a lot of rocker type girls in AEW. See Ruby Riott, see Saraya. So yeah, I think it's important that Toni Storm maybe get her own thing. So Toni ultimately looks at her script and and rips it up, and she must not like the ending to what's going to happen. So then Shida and Storm trade strikes. Shida with a knee in the corner, and then she took some chops to Storm's chest. Mariah May looks worried backstage while the chops continue. Storm fights back with chops of her own. There's a bulldog by Storm, winding up, and the elbow sends Shida down for a 1 count. Mariah looks happier as Toni goes on the offensive in this matchup. We get a missile drop kick for a 2 count. Toni blocks Shida on the ropes, presses down on her for a 1 and a 2. Luther places before an object in Toni's tights. Toni grabs the shoe, but Aubrey Edwards blocks that because she's the best female ref and she's all over it. Of course, the other shoe was in Toni's tights. She uses it for a 1 and a 2. At this point, we get a Storm Zero with a gin tonic. Shida with some punches to Storm. Storm fights back, Shida with the kick, and then basically at this point now we're going off script. Shida makes the ropes. The damage may be done though as Tony removes the shoe. Shida blocks it, smacks Storm to the floor. Shida gets the kendo stick and Luther makes sure that it doesn't happen. He then gets smacked several times with the kendo stick. Storm slides another item into her tights. Storm blocks the kick. A series of reversal leads to a near pinfall on Shida. Storm goes for a deadlift German suplex. Then a hip attack corner, perhaps aided by the object in Tony's tights. And then we get a 1, a 2, and a 3. And yes, history has been made in LA. We've got Tony Storm at the 10-minute mark becoming a 3-time women's world champion in AEW. Mariah May comes out with some flowers. There's quite a celebration here for our new champion. And the fans were into Tony's character very much. Not so much the overall match at some parts, but it did get that really didn't get involved with the shoes and the foreign objects. But we do get a nice little Tony Storm, and I do think it was the right call. I like long championship reigns, I do. Akira Shida always felt like a transitional champion. What I would ask is that the timeless one, Tony Storm, does have a long reign with this belt. Losing it to eventually somebody super important. So, backstage, Renee is with Eddie Kingston, and Eddie says that he is entering the Continental Classic, as mentioned earlier, and he wants to defend both of his championships in all of his matches. He then says he'll make it a triple crown, as the Continental Champion is going to be now a thing, and they'll create their own triple crown in AEW. So next up, we get the AEW World Tag Team Championships. A little bit of a melee here. We get a little mix of Ricky Starks and Big Bill. Reminds me of a little, Big Bill doing the Enzo and Cass thing with little pretty Ricky Starks. We got Rush and Dralistico. I really liked Dralistico. I was there the night they signed him, and he was on his first debut on Collision in Cleveland. So I do like Dralistico. Rush is fun. So you got your luchas, you got your champions, you got your technical tag team with the FTR, the 7-star legends in the making. And then you got Malachi Black and Brody King. That's your powerhouse team. So you got lucha versus technical versus the powerhouses versus the entertainers as the champions. Ricky Stark's entrance was the first thing to break, which made sense. And then it was a scrum to begin. And then it was Bill and Brody almost face off before everybody breaks it up. Dax knocks Black down with right hands. They're just kind of going all over the place, fighting each other. There's one point where Driscoll probably should have climbed the ladder, but he dives onto the mass, and the masses of people down below instead. It's a very lucha-like move. Starks goes up to the top, but Black breaks that up. Black then moonsaults onto the pile. Dak meets Ricky on the turnbuckle. And then at that point, the AEW crowd sure does like, what they see so far. They go for a choke slam, but Dax and Rush break it up. And we go a little bit forward in this matchup because who do you guys think is going to win this one? Well, we get Ricky doing some rope walks, and he takes out both the FTR members. Brody then has some good blood going on at this point. Starks overhead suplexes Black onto the ladder, and then the King takes out Starks with a backdrop. There's a cannonball on Dax. Brody climbs up. Dralisco later with some kicks to Bill. There's just pandemonium going wild. And Rush at another point sandwiches Bill in the corner with the ladder. And if you mess with the bull, you get the horns going on. And then there's a bull rush set up with the ladder, but Ricky joins him up top. Dax gets a taller ladder in this case. So we're getting a lot of ladder matches, and I feel like this match was really well placed on the card just after a couple matches, and then we get a little more variety kicked in right here. But Cash tries to stop things. Big Bill keeps Starks up on the ladder. Cash tries to stop it all, but it's the championships that are staying on top tonight as Ricky Starks and Big Bill keep their titles. This went about 20 minutes tonight. They obtained the belts via ladder match rules. And I will say, it's the right choice. Bill and Ricky do still belong as champions. They're building something up. They want to do something with Ricky. Ricky, what a year he's had. He's won the Owen Hart Cup. He's got a nice new shiny tag team partner. He's got a little bit of an attitude, right? I believe he had a title shot at some point too. So we do got a nice little, and when you don't ready to commit to pushing a guy in the main event or even the sub-main event, yeah, get him in the tag titles and get him a little bit of a run. I think this could eventually end up with a showdown with another great tag team. I'd like to personally see them run the Legends. I would like to see them go against the Hardys and go against a couple other teams and just really kind of establish themselves. I think they need a little bit more of a team name. But ultimately, let's get over to the TBS Championship. The days when the TBS Championship never changed hands. And there was a nice Bill Goldberg-like streak with a lady long ago named Jade Cargill. Those were the days, right? So the TBS Championship has had 2 champions in its history. Jade Cargill for a couple years. And now we have Chris Statlander, who is picking up the pace for her in her leave. So this one is Chris Statlander defending against Julia Hart and Sky Blue. There was a little bit of who would be the third person in this matchup. Sky Blue or Red Velvet. They had a match, and Sky Blue did get the rights to be in this matchup. So overall, we do get Julia here, and we'll kind of wonder what's going to happen with her and Statlander. It's been a little bit of a story between Sky Blue and all of them. But ultimately, we get some back and forth right in the beginning, and Chris gets knocked out of the ring right away. And Julia hits a cannonball on the floor. Sky hits a Rana to Chris on the floor, and Chris gets a double suplex on her 2 opponents. She sends Julia back into the ring. There's a kicks for Chris Statlander, including a double super kick. Sky and Julia face off. There's a truce that lasts for about 8 seconds before Julia goes on the offensive, and Sky fights back and hits her move for a 2 count. Statlander with a suplex for Sky. She kicks both women up. There's a Samoan drop to Sky. There's a pinfall broken up by Julia's senton. Fast forward in the match a little bit, we got Julia who knocks Chris off the turnbuckle, hits the moonsault on Sky. Chris barely breaks up the pinfall in the timeline. Julia gets power slammed on the floor, and Sky fights right back, hits some kicks on Chris. Chris nearly hits the finish. We then get a code blue. Julia she hits a code blue, and gets a 2 count. Julia then blocks another code blue. There's lariats on Chris in the back of the head, and then there was the Heartless lock on Sky, but Statlander Germans suplexes Julia out of it. And there's another German suplex, and another for Sky. And then there's a quick cover for a 2. Chris hits the Saturday Night Fever on Sky, and gets a 2 before Julia knocks her right off for the cover. Julia covers Sky instead, and we have a new women's champion at the 11-minute mark. 11 minutes, 21 seconds. We have a new women's champion. But that's okay, because we have 2 women's champions that changed hands tonight. So this night definitely went to the changing the guard for the women. I think Julia Hart has worked very hard on her character. I'm not hating the idea. I do like Chris Statlander. It makes me wonder. You heard it here first. I feel like with this win by Julia, it might be a good opportunity to push Chris Statlander and to make her be the first opponent to Timeless Toni Storm. I feel like when they're done with the TBS Championship, they do move to the main event title. So I book it. Chris Statlander versus Toni Storm. That'll be her first title defense. But we do have our TBS Championship completed here on this one. Hey guys, and speaking of complete, if you really want a complete fan base to just work around, check us out on the fansofprowrestling.com. My tag partner Carlos, John Will Heather, got the whole crew, got Ted the Hillbilly Hill. We've got a lot of great podcasts over on that page. Check us out. Hey, follow me on Twitter X at @TheBryanAdkins. And guys, thank you just so much for being here, being a part of this. Like, share, subscribe if you can. Liking just helps me so much in just, kind of coming here and as, I'm still working on my own, trying to do my thing. But let's move on. And speaking of new things, we've got the contract signing We were wondering who AEW's big announcement was going to be. We wanted to know who was going to be the changing of the guard and the world's biggest free agent. And that is none other than Will Ospreay. You might say, who? Will Oceanspray. Isn't that a sports drink? No. Will Ospreay is from England. He is a European fighter that is mostly known for fighting in Japan. Now, something you guys should know via the post-media scrum. Will Ospreay is AEW and is all Elite. However, he is still under contract until January with New Japan Pro Wrestling. But as you know, AEW and New Japan have a very friendly partnership with these kinds of things. And I don't suspect that would ever end. Also, it's very interesting. Will Ospreay, and they just announced a few weeks ago that they will do All In Part 2 over in England. That's going to be very interesting to have Will Ospreay in his hometown crowd. I've said it once, I'll say it again. There's only two people that should take that title off of MJF. It's late night. MJF should only lose his belt to two people. I said one would be Kenny Omega, the king of AEW. Kenny the Collector, one of the greatest champions in AEW history. The other, Will Ospreay. I said it months ago. This man has done nothing but impress me in the very small sample size of matches that I've watched with him. And he's not just high-flying crazy good, he's good. If you guys have not seen a Will Ospreay match, check out Forbidden Door. Any of them. Check out any of the matches in AEW. Check out Kenny Omega. So these are definitely great opponents. I think Will Ospreay will end up being, he may win the dang title in front of a monumentous WrestleMania-like crowd next year. I'm calling it now. Even if MJF is not in the title picture then. I will say that Will Ospreay will become AEW champion in next year in Wembley. Book it. And speaking of booking, we get to, in my opinion, which was the match of the night. The Texas Death Match. Hangman Adam Page, Swerve Strickland, Part 2. And I'll be honest, Part 1 was good, but Part 2 blew the doors off. So let me kind of start on a couple things. I want to say this because I just feel like I can't say it enough. We talked about it in a Twitter X space the other night on Wednesday Night Chaos. Me and John, Chris, Nasty Leroy, the whole crew. We all got in there. We all talked, right? And we got into how these matches are violence and what that really means. So I want to kind of make my point again for all you that haven't heard it. I seen posts of some people on social media, on Twitter, and you guys were saying, I seen one in particular that said, I can't believe I let my younger sister or kid, whatever it was, let their first pay-per-view watch something as horrible as this Texas Death Match because there was a lot of blood. And there was even drinking of blood. That's right, they drank blood in this match, okay? And what kills me is the responsibility when you're responsible for somebody, a kid, a parent, etc., right? In your first pay-per-view, I want to keep in mind, your first pay-per-view, you see advertised Texas Death Match. And you say, that should be a good idea. I'm going to pay for that and let them watch. You have to take responsibility, okay? AEW did nothing wrong here, in my opinion. They did not false advertise anything. They did not make this on casual TV where you would accidentally turn on the channel. They gave us this match on a pay-per-view, meaning you paid money to watch this. Means that you should know what you're ordering. Like I said, you go to the restaurant, you order a meal. And it was advertised as the Texas Death Match. That's what you ordered. If you weren't sure what a Texas Death Match, do your own research. Google it. TikTok it. We live in that world now. you don't have the right to not educate yourself and get an idea of what a Texas death match is and what kind of expectations to have for the weak at heart. So, what I will say is these performers are doing matches that put their careers at a liability. AEW did this correctly by making it a pay-per-view match. You can't accidentally stumble across this match. So at the end of the day, there is some responsibility on the buyer to actually know what they are ordering or buying. And it's not like we called it the Elf Grass and Cupcakes picnic match. It's a Texas death match. Okay, I'm going to get off that rant. Sorry for that. But ultimately, I just had to get that out because I do think we don't have that right to, stumble across things and act offended. Okay? Gotta stop being offended, guys. It's wrestling. So, at the end of the day, we get a heck of a matchup out of these two. I think it's one of the match of the year candidates for a hardcore match. In this matchup, I seen something different out of Adam Hangman Page. I seen a little bit of grit. And this is Nasty Leroy, I believe, was made this point. Leroy said, when you got a guy like Swerve, who's really up in his game, and he got Adam Page to really up his game and go along this journey with him, you're going to get something really good. Swerve Strickland, I'm going to talk about what my thoughts on him overall, but I want to kind of talking about this one, right? So we get some lariats in the first 20, we get the buckshot lariat in the first 20 seconds of the matchup. There's a knockout and submissions are the way to win this one overall. And Page throws Swerve around at ringside. Page looks under the ring and eventually finds some duct tape. And he also finds a chair to hit Swerve with. Page uses the tape. We've seen him kind of do something similar before on Swerve's wrist. And he brought a staple gun with him. The staple gun goes right to the pectoral muscle and another one. Swerve gets stapled all around the ringside while his wrists are taped. Page then drives the sideways chair into Swerve's head and the referee starts counting. Swerve is already busted open while Page staples a finger painting overall or a drawing to his head. And he swears Swerve, and then he takes and he drinks Swerve's blood. Wow. Now Page has barbed wire chairs coming out. Page swings for the fences. That means that Swerve Strickland has got under the nerve of Page so much that he's got to go to these measures to put him away. He's got to put him away once and for all. He's had it with Swerve Strickland. Swerve Strickland is such a villain and such a heel. Our hero Hangman has to do more. Every Batman needs their Joker. So at this point later on, we get some center blocks involved, and Page, we get some Swerve gets pile drives Page into a barricade. It didn't look fun, and then Swerve is just losing blood, pints of blood. We get another fall-away slam later on in the match. Page obtains some barbed wire, and he hits it on Swerve's face again. He then ties up Swerve with the barbed wire, delivering another fall-away slam, and Page then takes the barbed wire chair up top and hits a moonsault onto Swerve onto the floor. So we get a lot here. Fast forwarding a little bit more because this match was just all over. We get Swerve with a 450 splash. The JML driver. Then somehow Heyman gets up at the 9 count. He's still hanging in there. He's still battling. Swerve then cactus clotheslines Page to the floor. We have a barbed wire board coming out. What else is left? The kitchen sink. Swerve props open the board. Swerve sets Page on the turnbuckle. Page hits a fallaway slam on top through the board. There's a power bomb and a dead eye on the board. Swerve makes it to all fours before Page starts wrapping the barbed wire around Swerve's head. There's another buckshot lariat. We move on, and at this point, here comes Brian Cage, which is fine because there's no DQs in this matchup. So Cage hits a couple of power bombs and some and an F5 for good measure via Brock Lesnar style. We get a regular table. That's weird in this matchup. Not barbed wire. The fans want it on fire, but instead, Page hits some elbow strikes with the barbed wire around his arm. And the lariat sends Cage to the floor. Now Nana hits Page with a chair. yeah, this isn't going to end well. And then ultimately, Swerve has a cinder block and he smashes it over Hangman Page's back. Does this match end? Will it end? Well, guess what? Swerve now has the chain. He's wrapping it around Page's neck and he's hanging the Hangman. We've seen this before. He thinks about getting up. Page thinks about getting up, but doesn't. And this one is over. Hangman Adam Page. Hangman Adam Page. Swerve Strickland. Guys, I just got to go back and say, these guys battled their hearts out. To me, it was match of the night. Good luck to anybody having to follow this one. Who's the poor soul going to be? Yeah, it's going to be the tag match, right? We only got 2 matches left. It's the tag match. It's Kenny Omega, the Golden Jets, and Chris Jericho. The Golden Jets versus the Young Bucks. All right, we're going to do a... Hey, if anybody can do anything, it's these 4 guys. They're talented. They're loved. It's hard to follow that death match, but you know what? These guys are loved by the fans. If anybody can do it, it's them. At least they can take some of that, cool the crowd down a little, but, start to heat them up for the main event. This matchup, I was still thinking about that past matchup with the Texas Death Match. And how that was, God, it was a main event match. I said it once, I'll say it again. I think Swerve Strickland should be the Seth Rollins of AEW. Meaning he could be a world champion if he wants. But let's move on. I digress. We get a little back and forth tag match on this one. Later, mid-match, we get a Meltzer driver. It gets blocked, and then there's miscommunication between the Bucks. Jericho gets kicked on an elbow. He delivers a low blow to Nick. There's a lot of low blows in this pay-per-view. Lots of nut shots. He teases with a V-trigger on Jericho. Kenny goes for the one-winged angel, opts with the German suplex instead, and gets for a 1 and a 2. Kenny eats a super kick. So does Jericho. Jericho eats a few more for good measure, and Kenny with a V-trigger on Matt. And then the one-winged angel. 1, 2, and 3. Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega went around the 20-minute mark. Nick throws the chair around at ringside afterwards. Aubrey tries to calm him down. Kind of very Jericho-type tantrum. Ultimately, post-conference media scrum, we get Jericho with a big cut in the arm. He's asked about it. He says he needed about 10 stitches. So we can see here, pretty good cut. Nothing big deal that Jericho can't handle. But he's probably been through worse. I know he's been through worse. But the fans, while it was slow, and I think it was just due to the recovering from the death match, this matchup took a while to heat up. The fans did eventually get into it. But what we're really getting into next is the main event. We've got the AEW champion, Jay White, going against, not MJF, Adam Cole. So Adam Cole crutches his way to the ring. Are we really going to do this? Are we really going to make the magically not cleared guy fight? It's just going to be a butt kicking by Jay White. So Jay offers to lay down. It's very nice of Jay. But hold on, just as Jay is kind of teasing and mocking him, we get an ambulance driving into the building, Stone Cold Steve Austin style. It's MJF committing a felony, driving into the ring. He emerges out with a ton of tape on his leg. I don't know who did that rap job, but still in better shape than Adam Cole to compete. Though a bunch of officials try to stop him from entering the ring. But I don't get it because it doesn't make sense. You're okay with Adam Cole, who's got a more severe injury wrestling, but you're not okay with MJF. I get this, there's storytelling here. I get that they're trying to elevate it, but it just got a little overbooked like you guys said. I believe my tag partner Carlos didn't like this one too much. Yeah, it seemed a little silly. But let's look at the match itself. I felt like the match itself was not bad. We get some slaps in the beginning. I mean, it was a really good back and forth match. MJF seemed unhappy, and the fans get behind him. They try to hawk up. MJF gets a slam. That doesn't help his leg situation overall. MJF then rams Jay's head into the corner approximately, I think it was like a 9-10 count, and then hits about 9 punches in the corner before biting him. Lots of biting on this show tonight. Lots of nut shots. MJF sets up for the kangaroo kick and he hits it. There's a kip up, and then he then goes for his knee because he's in such pain and he's selling the bad fake knee injury. MJF then tries to go for a middle rope. It doesn't work. Uranga gets a 2 for White. There's a stomp to MJF's knee. MJF blocks a suplex, but White hits him back with a suplex on the floor. Like I said, a lot of suplexes, a lot of punching in this matchup. There's the Tree of Woe place. They really wanted to work the idea with the Tree of Woe that MJF's knee is just terrible. We get it. There was one sweet spot in this matchup. It was probably one of my favorites, where White shakes off a move, and then MJF goes for the huge win, and he goes for hitting White with a running RKO out of nowhere style cutter from the apron floor. It's pretty sweet. And at this point, a lot of cool matches, but we gotta take this home, right? We gotta take it home because it's just we gotta get this pay-per-view over with. So White teases the tapping out at one point. Cole has his Ring of Honor tag team belt in his hand, looks at White with an evil intentions, but White takes it and hits MJF with it. So at this point, I thought Adam Cole. I was like, what's going on? Adam Cole going to be the devil? Is this all a big story, part of a big reveal? What's the payoff? But instead, we got Adam Cole, the friend. Cole produces the Dynamite Diamond Ring. I'm going to come back to this with a main point in my thoughts. But White gets to it first. White goes for the punch. But MJF hits White low. And we're all about the low blows again. And again, the guns run down. They get knocked out of the ring again. MJF hits White with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. And Bryce Remberg sees nothing and counts the 1, the 2, and the 3. And we get MJF retaining his title under all this drama and pressure at the 29-minute, 45-second mark by pinfall. MJF and Cole celebrate afterwards. It was a long celebration afterwards. We had a good 5 minutes of ring celebration. I thought something was going to play and happen, but no, we just go off the air. All right, good for them. And at that point, a simple standard match with some overbooked storytelling. Guys, I want to get to my final thoughts here. The Devil. You guys said the Devil did not make an appearance tonight. And I tweeted out about it the night of AEW Full Gear. And I gave you guys a hint of my thoughts on this, my final thoughts. And my tweet was this photo with simply the captions, sometimes the devil you know, ... To finish that, if you guys don't know the saying, sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. The Devil was there tonight, you guys. And his name, he wasn't able to make an actual appearance because why? He was at ringside for 40 minutes. And his name was Adam Cole. I feel like Adam Cole is the Devil. I feel like stories got a little swayed with this injury. But he is connected in some format. Now they're going to try to throw a swerve at you. No pun intended, not Swerve Strickland. They're going to throw a swerve at you, and they're going to try to make you think it's somebody other than Adam Cole. They're going to throw AEW, Dynamite, and Samoa Joe at it, right? They're going to throw weird things at it. But ultimately, Adam Cole is playing a part here. He's playing a role, and there's a reason that they kept him on TV. I want you to think of that. Number 2, all the drama, all the friendship being built up. Again, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And I feel as though it's too easy for that. Number 3, the Dynamite Diamond Ring. Can you guys tell me how Adam Cole got a hold of the Dynamite Diamond Ring and why did he have it? Which means that he could have went into MJF's locker. He knows the code. Just as much as he could have grabbed it out of his locker, well, that means he could have stolen his devil mask as well. So I do believe that all of this is meant to be Adam Cole as the devil for those reasons. Again, how did he get that diamond ring? And he just happened to have it. So, and if he did, how did he get in the locker? Which means he could have gotten the mask. All right, guys. So overall, bookend storytelling I thought was good. I like that they're attempting to do this, but we just got to think about why we're doing it and what the purpose is of this one. So if we think about those concepts, I do like the idea of stories at pay-per-views. Who ran over Stone Cold at Survivor Series? Remember that classic? Things like that. So ultimately, that's all my final thoughts and results. Thank you guys for sticking with me here. Thanks for guys. If you got any discussions beyond this, let's talk in the Twitter X space at the Bryan Adkins, or let's also just hit me up in the comments down below, because I do love talking. I do answer comments. All right, guys, wish you the best. Thank you so much. I'm heading out. And don't forget, like, share, subscribe. It's not goodbye. It's game over.